basketball. What do we have to see this weekend different?
Yeah, I think you have to see that A&M defense, the defensive pressure that they're known for. They're known for being a strong defensive team, and they're going to have to play strong defense. They can't be giving up. They can't be letting Walter Clayton shoot threes the way Tyler Nickel or the way Goodine, or what was the kid from Tennessee? I've already forgotten his. What?
Chaz Lanier.
Chaz Lanier.
Chaz Lanier. I mean, how can we forget that performance? Yeah. Goodness.
Right. I didn't forget the performance. I just forgot the name.
Yeah.
So
I forgot for a moment too.
Yeah. So got to do a better job.
Yeah.
Defending 3-point, and then if you're going to take a lot of threes, you got to make a lot of threes.
Interestingly, though, even though I think 22 is a lot in my the way I would play basketball, but I don't college coach. 22 is a good number in this league to take. They took 22 most recently, right? So it's not 30.
Right. But you gotta need to make.
You gotta make them.
Make them. Now, again, in their last game, the percentage looked
better,
acceptable, 7 of 22. But then you also got to understand that 2 of them were in the last 13 minutes. Well, yeah, they made it close.
Seconds.
Huh?
13 minutes?
Did I say 13 minutes?
Yeah.
13 seconds. Yeah, they made it close, but you were in desperation.
Yeah.
And really they had one last chance, but it wasn't happening.
It's like prevent defense stats when a quarterback's padding a stat.
Thank you. That's a great analogy.
It's not the same. I mean, sure, the stats count, but it's not the same.
If you had shot those earlier in the game,
right,
then maybe you do have a chance. So, and then certain players have got to pick it up a little bit.
Yep.
They've got some guys that have a history of playing really well and are struggling. So the thing is, they have good basketball players. They're a good basketball team. Buzz Williams said, "Hey, we got to play to our ceiling." Mm-hmm. So that's what we want to say. Play to your ceiling.
Play to your ceiling. So now is where we do the 3 things we want to see. And it can be all things in sports, okay? Mm-hmm. So for basketball, is your number 1 play to your ceiling?
Yes. I could be really lame about this. Say I want to see the baseball team win, the basketball team and the softball team win. But because I cover basketball.
John, I'm kind of concerned about Pharrell Payne against Florida for obvious reasons. How they handle the paint, how good they are there, how their size. And in the last 10 days, we've seen Pharrell look excellent, right? I thought he was such a bright spot in the Vanderbilt game. They neutralized him against Tennessee, had a rough one against Mississippi State. How do you see Pharrell Payne's usage this weekend in particular?
I mean, at this point in the year, a concern for me is the multitude of lineups that they've used, right? Against Tennessee, Payne didn't start. They started Coleman, Solo, and Garcia, and that was to go with a big lineup, which I didn't really buy into. And then instead of starting Coleman, they put in Payne into the lineup against Vanderbilt. He obviously plays really well. It's hard at this point to keep switching your lineups and playing some guys minutes and some guys not minutes. And they're still doing that in a way that worries me a little bit. Like, are they trying to find themselves defensively? Are they trying to find themselves offensively? Is this an analytics piece? And they're looking at metrics of the other team. Like, sometimes you just got to feed your dude and let him work. And against Vanderbilt, they did that more, right? They got Payne more touches with 2 feet in the paint. They let him go to work a little bit. There's a little bit more space, primarily because he had a physical advantage. When you're talking about a Florida team that mixes up pressures and has big bodies and can throw multiple people at you, and they're going to double the paint when they feel like it. Like, Todd Golden is really smart. He comes from an analytical mind. Like, that's what he did at San Francisco. He still does some of that stuff, except in a different way in the SEC. I'm a little bit concerned as to how they get paint touches and can they get them early, knowing that Florida is really going to match up size for size with our guys. Besides Payne, I'm concerned at the the front court four that I was calling them and adding Solo into the lineup as the 3. I just don't think it takes advantage of what he's really good at. And it puts a little bit more pressure on him having the ball on the perimeter in ways that he doesn't need to on the wing rather than at the top of the key where he can rip one dribble and try and get to the rim.
And there's no real adversity in the fall, and there's no real adversity in the preseason buildup. There's not. The real adversity happens when the lights go on and you start losing and not playing well. That's real adversity. So I'm glad it happened in week 1, where it could have happened in week 3, 4, 5, and you're going, uh-oh. Like with this schedule coming up, and now you're kind of waffling. This is going to force a lot of people to look in the mirror, and it's going to force this team collectively to look in the mirror and say, what do we want to be? What does this version of this team want to be?
So, Scott, based on what we've seen early, has your confidence about what this team can be been altered at all?
No, not really. I think that the questions that this team had on how you were going to follow up 3 pretty good starters is still the questions that have to be answered. Yes, you have an injury that takes a preseason All-American out of your lineup. That has opened the door for a couple freshmen that were going to push, that you were going to see, how can we get these guys in the lineup, an opportunity to play, and for one of them to try to reach a level. But the defense looked better the other day. It was not Gavin Grahovic's fault that his injury was affecting him defensively, and A&M was suffering with some stuff defensively through no fault of Gavin trying to play with that injury. You moved Hensler back to third base, and he looks like the guy who's been a 4-year starter at third base. And you have guys to go play second base. So I like where that was. Starting pitching, I still like the lineup. Let's figure some things out in the bullpen. The defense I've already seen get a little better in the one game with Hensler at third base.
Let's do this. I mean, let's be real candid about no Gavin Grahovic and no Caden Sorrell. If you knew that going into the preseason, would this be the number 1 team in the country? Because that's at least 1, but potentially 2 first-round draft picks.
Yeah.
That's what it is. If you take Wade Taylor, you don't have to take Wade Taylor, but if you took Zurich Phelps and Solomon Washington out of the Aggie basketball lineup,
they're not the same team.
When Le'Veon Moss went down,
they were not the same team.
Right. So what you're saying is when you lose some of your best players, it greatly affects what you can do.
15-year, $515 million fully guaranteed deal with Playfly Sports. A&M jumps from $18 million to $34 million annually thanks to the largest such deal in college athletics. You tweeted that earlier. So, look, I understand what it means, but what does it really mean? Like, help us understand what doors this opens.
Well, and first of all, that was Trev Alberts. You know, people, you know, you like to see like the results. So that there it is right there. Like that's a lot of work that went into that, and that is not only is it, and it's an incredible deal in terms of it's burst through whatever people perceive the ceiling to be on this thing. And Texas A&M now has the largest, the most lucrative, fully guaranteed media rights deal in college athletics. Think about that statement. And then also think about how difficult that was for Trev Alberts and anyone else involved at Texas A&M to pull that off.
Right.
Like, you did something that has yet to be done in college sports. And it's going to, I said the words game changer because it's going to change the game, because it's just like building the best facilities, the best stadium, having the best NIL set. Like, people are going to, copy and, say, okay, they did this. So for A&M to be the one to burst through that ceiling, it's completely going to change the game and how it's played with these multimedia rights company. They went from Learfield to Playfly, which is, they essentially opened it up to bidding. And it just proves a lot of people, we look at the wins and losses and look, seriously, we're going to talk even today about basketball, baseball, football. Like, the wins have to come. When you say stuff like this, though, they are separate. You don't have to caveat that with, oh, we got all this, but the wins don't. No, this will ultimately, two things. It will help you, continue to help you try to get there. And we all know how difficult a climb it's been for A&M to, quote, get there. And what I'm talking about by get there is national title. It's top 10 programs. It's the ability, if you want to keep a coach, to keep the coach. It's the ability to, if you lose a coach, to go make that splash higher. Because all of that is about money and stability and leadership. And this deal indicates all three.
Yep.
I mean, it guarantees the money. You're going from $18 million a year to $34 million a year. It shows leadership and vision in this changing era, and it also shows how. And this is what people have a hard time wrapping their head around, and they need to start realizing it and start, like, people outside of the A&M bubble need to start realizing it, and they will with things like this. And people inside the bubble need to realize, like, yes, this is a powerful, powerful, big brand.